Now, President Trump has reportedly looked into destroying the First Amendment. Now, I want you to watch this exchange that happened on Sunday between Chief of Staff Reince Priebus and news reporter Jonathan Karl.
There was what he said about opening up the libel laws, tweeting, "The failing New York Times has disgraced the media world, gotten me wrong for 2 solid years, change the libel laws." That would require, as I understand it, a constitutional amendment. Is he really going to pursue that? Is that something he wants to pursue?
I think it's something that we've looked at, and how that gets executed or whether that goes anywhere is a different story. But when you have articles out there that have no basis or fact, and we're sitting here on 24/7 cable companies writing stories about constant contacts with Russia and all these other matters.
Do you think the president should be able to sue the New York Times for stories he doesn't like?
I think that newspapers and news agencies need to be more responsible with how they report the news. I am so tired.
I don't think anybody would disagree with that. It's about whether or not the president should have a right to sue them.
And I already answered the question. I said this is something that is being looked at, but it's something that, as far as how it gets executed, where we go with it, that's another issue.
So see, we were looking into it. Yes, we do think the president should be able to sue over news stories that he does not like, news stories that are critical of him. Well, okay, well, then you pretty much destroyed the First Amendment. If you're looking into ways of crushing free speech, that seems to be a little bit of an issue. Now, again, they want to destroy the First Amendment. Now, look, our media, and we're very critical of the media, right? They already seem to have a problem with challenging people in power. Thankfully, thanks to the Trump administration, they've actually had a little bit of balls. Slightly more than they had during the Obama administration, obviously, in challenging our politicians and challenging people in power. Now, if you put in the ability for the president, and it wouldn't be just President Trump, by the way. This would be any future Republican president or any future Democratic president that could sue a news organization for publishing a story that they didn't like. Imagine we get a Democratic president in 2020, right? Republicans' hair is on fire already. Oh my God, Democrats in 2020, Trump. No. Like, just imagine Breitbart writes an article about future president whatever, right, who happens to be a Democrat. That Democrat president says, hey, you know what? I don't like that story. I'm going to sue you. Conservative heads would explode. But here you have Reince Priebus talking about, well, we've looked into the possibility of suing presidents for publishing stories that we don't necessarily like, we don't agree with. You have that, like, again, we already have that problem with our media not being aggressive enough with people in power, challenging people in power because of access. Well, that problem under this gets a whole lot worse. And so this, I mean, look, progressives, we're different than Republicans. I would like to think, anyway. They want to destroy the free press. They want state-run media stenographers, as long as they're in charge, of course. Now, what we do, at least what I want to do, is I want to make the media better, right? I want to change the media structure so that it's independent from government and corporate interests, so that it doesn't have to fight for access in order to get ratings. That's the thing. We want them to be a watchdog of the government, not a lapdog of the government. And I like to criticize CNN, MSNBC for doing that, for being lapdogs, for, you know, bringing on a Republican and Democrat and just splitting everything down the middle, doing false equivalence. Well, Republicans say that, Democrats say this. You decide. No, you have a job to report the facts. And if you don't report if you try to report the facts, unfortunately in this environment, politicians were like, well, I don't want to go on your show if you're going to challenge me, if you're not going to give me softballs. So we have to change that structure. Now, the Republicans look at that and say, no, when we're in charge, we want the media to parrot our talking points. And even, you know, even some media outlets under President Obama did essentially the same thing. Okay. But even that is not as bad as, hey, we actually are looking at destroying a free media. We're actually looking at destroying a free press, the First Amendment. Again, that won't just affect corporate media. That would affect all media. Imagine a smaller news company or just a smaller person, you know, doing the show. on YouTube, for example. Hey, but maybe use myself or other people like me as an example. We do a story critical of the president. The guy catches wind of it. We're going to sue you into oblivion. Well, essentially, you've destroyed independent media. And not just independent media, corporate media, conservative media too. All of us. This affects all of us. So you have to be really careful what you wish for. And basically, you cannot mess with the First Amendment. When you start doing so, you really, you start to enter some dangerous waters. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.